Welcome back, everyone. My name is Alex Anthony, and you're watching episode 1 of Break the Deck. So what I'm going to do with this series is teach you folks how to play a little Pokemon if you're very new or 100% new to the game. The Battle Academy just came out recently. This is the Cinderace deck from the Battle Academy. I know a lot of people just got this product recently, and if you got this product, you know how to play the game. So I'm assuming that you know that much this far. If you don't know how to play the game and you own this product, go read the instructions on how to actually play the game, or if you've never played the game and you don't have the product, just, watch a quick YouTube video on how the game mechanics actually work. This is, once you've gotten that far, how to actually play the deck, how to actually try to win some games with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the Cinderace deck first. That'll be this video today, and then in my next videos I will go through the Pikachu deck and the Eevee deck, and then eventually I'll come back to the Cinderace deck in my 4th video of the series and show you guys how to beat the other 2 decks with this deck. So, and then we'll do, we'll just keep going with that. And then eventually, after that, we will add in other level 1 decks. Just got the Lycanroc and Corviknight deck, so I can battle my friend Aria. Shout out to Aria at AriaQuinnPlays and the whole family. Hope you guys are watching. Yeah, so I'm going to just be doing things like this. I'll get some other V-Battle decks. There's going to be some level 2, and I don't know if there's any level 3 products coming out soon, but I know that there's like a couple Calyrex decks coming out soon and a couple other things. And then eventually I will show you folks my decks that I play with in Standard, and we will get into some real deep stuff. So I just thought this would be a cool way to break down some mechanics of what the people who put this deck together were kind of going for, and when you are playing this, how to actually play the deck so that you can have the most fun with it. This game is the most fun when you are doing the best you can and optimizing everything and, just playing the best you can. So I figure I'll go from kind of just go around the board and talk about everything we have. Always probably good to start with I'm actually going to start with the energy cards, because I'll build up to the from least interesting to most interesting. Pretty basic. We have 18 energy cards in this deck. Always sleeve your cards, folks, if you're gonna be playing with them. I sleeve them and double sleeve them. I have them in perfect fits, side-loaded perfect fits, and then in Dragon Shield sleeves. So I at least single sleeve them in some like Pokemon sleeves or something, just so the cards don't get ruined if you're gonna be playing with them. So 18 energy, very basic. Now we have 2 different types of trainer cards in this deck. We have item cards and we have our supporter cards. Supporter cards you can only use 1 per turn. Item cards you can use as many per turn as you would like. I'll go through the supporter cards real quick because they're not as interesting. You have Hop, which is your basic draw 3. You're gonna have a lot of basic draw 3s in these level 1 type decks. It's just a pretty staple card that you'll see. It's very helpful, when you're playing these decks that have games that just move a little bit slower. So there are 4 Hop. Then there are, actually, let me jump to Bug Catcher, because Bug Catcher, which you have 2 copies of, is a draw 2 cards, flip a coin, if heads, draw 2 more cards. Just as a heads up, most people will flip the coin first and then go from there, and if they get a heads, they'll draw 4, and if they get tails, they'll just draw 2, so that you don't have to split up the process, make it a little easier. But in tournament play, or if you were, which you probably would never use this card in tournament, but if you were going to play in tournament, you would probably have to go exactly by the rules. Just letting you all know kind of the ins and outs of the mechanics of the game and the etiquette and all of that. But the main reason why I wanted to talk about this card first, or next after Hop, is because it's a draw 2, flip a coin, draw 2 more if you get heads. So 50% of the time, you're going to draw 4 cards. 50% of the time, you're going to draw 2 cards. Meaning, once you average it out, it's essentially a draw 3. So I like to look at this card the exact same as Hop. So in my mind, you have 6 draw 3 cards. So 10% of your deck is a draw 3 card. That's good, because you want to have a lot of ways to maneuver through your deck if you get some bad hands. I'll show you folks some hands later. I'll shuffle the deck and I'll just show you some random hands and what you would want to do with those hands and how to play the game itself. So we have, I think, 3 Shauna. 3 Shauna, which is great. It's like a slightly worse version of Cynthia if you folks played the last Battle Academy. Shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 5 cards. Cynthia was draw 6, but same concept. Very cool card. It's going to help a lot when your hand is what we call clogged. Like you have, say you have a bunch of evolution cards and you don't have the basic in play, or you have a bunch of energy and you don't necessarily need them, or you just, whatever the situation may be. If you want to refresh your hand, this is a really good card. And then Sonia is a nice little versatile card in this deck. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, or up to 2 basic energy cards, not both. Reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. The reveal them is important because you have to show your opponent what you did with this card, and that is not the case every single time you search your deck. So it's just an important stipulation. This is going to, just to give you folks a brief little peek into the strategy, we're going to almost always be using this card to be searching the Pokemon, not the energy in this deck, but you never know. You never know. The other trainer cards in this deck are the item cards. So Potion is a heal 3, I was gonna say 3 damage counters, but 3 damage counters, 30 damage from one of your Pokemon, same thing. Very basic card, but it's nice to have. You only have a 1 copy of it, so you kind of have to use it very sparingly. I would recommend probably using it on something like your V Pokemon, but we'll get into the strategy of it all later. Great Ball is a very, I would say, important card in this deck. You probably wouldn't use this card in standard format, considering that we have Quick Ball and Ultra Ball and other things like that. But in this deck, Great Ball is actually very nice. You are able to look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal a Pokemon you find there and put it into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. And why that's really nice is a lot of times you'll say have the stage 1 in your hand and you will need to grab the basic, or you will just need to be filling up your bench or something of that nature, or you'll have, you know, the inverse. You'll have the basic, but you'll need to find the stage 1. This deck does not play any stage 2 Pokemon. That's kind of why I just said that at stage 1. So you have 4 Great Ball. You have, I believe, 2 Pokemon Catcher. Pokemon Catcher are what we would call in the standard format gusting cards, or like a boss's orders, but you will see this card played in standard format. It's actually getting to be a little bit more meta of a card, so it's actually pretty cool that you get to learn this card now. Flip a coin. If heads, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. This can be a super powerful card if your opponent is trying to build up something on the bench and then you power up one of your fire Pokemon and you're able to hit it really hard. So there are 2 of these in the deck. We will once again get into the strategy of this later, but that's a really, really cool and important card of the deck. Another very important card of this deck is Energy Retrieval. Put 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. The reason why this is important is because a lot of your Pokemon's attacks will be discarding energy to get their maximum power from them. And then finally, you have 2 switch cards for your last 2 trainer cards. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. You get to do this without discarding any of the energy that would be required for a standard retreat type play. Starting off with the Pokemon, naturally we should start off with the Cinderace V. I would have to classify Cinderace V, just in the grand scheme of Pokemon V and this and that, a rather lackluster Pokemon. It doesn't really do too much. It's going to probably act as maybe even like a bit of a tank, and then you might have to heal that 30 damage. Like I said, you might want to use that potion on this Cinderace when you are playing it. But the fact that you need 3 energy to use its attack, there is no way to accelerate energy, meaning there's no way to add more than just the 1 per turn that you're allotted. So it's going to take a bit to build up Cinderace, and it only has 1 attack. And usually Pokemon with only 1 attack have pretty good attacks. And this one requires you to discard 2 energy from this Pokemon when you use it. So 210 damage is crazy. That's great. In this format, like, you know, prequel, like, that'll knock out anything. Like, there's nothing that has more than 210 HP. So that will 1-hit knock out anything in the Battle Academy. So that's pretty crazy. But what you need to power it up, it's slow. So just know that. It's cool that we get to play with the Vs now. Before we were using the GXs, which are also fun because those you have to evolve. Like if you're playing with, say, in hypothetical terms, I know it doesn't exist, but a Cinderace GX, you would have needed to have your Scorbunny, and I forget what the middle evolution is, but like, and then you would have to evolve into Cinderace GX. That's how the Charizard deck worked in that last Academy. So it's cool that we get the V, but this is not my favorite V. The highlights of this card are probably the fact that it has 210 HP. The low light is only the 1 attack, and the fact that when you do get to actually attack with it, it only gets to really attack for 1 turn. So it doesn't mean this is a bad deck, it just means that this particular V is going to be a little hard to work with and play around. So to get into the Pokemon, we have our, I think, 3 copies of Larvesta. So Larvesta is an interesting card, and it's actually going to be one of the more meta cards of this deck, so that's why I wanted to showcase it first. It has the Flame Charge attack, which is, it does 10 damage, and you get to search your deck for a Fire Energy card and attach it to this Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. So keep that in mind. We're going to get into the strategy after we get through all the Pokemon. 3 copies of that. You have Volcarona, which is the evolutionary state of Larvesta. You have 2 of these. It has the Combustion attack for 50, and then the Fire Spin attack, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon for 170. Look familiar? Just wanted to point that out. Also, one thing I didn't mention with Cinderace V, which I should at this point in time, but if you didn't know, V Pokemon, if you lose them, if they are knocked out, V Pokemon lose 2, your opponent gets to take 2 prize cards. So it is extra detrimental to you to lose the V. You never want your V to get knocked out. Whereas Volcarona, you know, prequel to the strategy, 40 less, but it only gives up 1 prize card. Victini, I think we have 2 of these. Victini's an interesting little card. It's got a quick draw for 1 colorless energy. I mean, fire, because you don't have any other energy type in this deck. And then 30 damage for 2 energy combustion. You'll probably use this a little bit more early game, not too much late game. Sizzlypede for 10 Gnaw, and then for 20 Ember. Pretty much gonna hope to never have to use those attacks. You have 4 of these, and the reason why I have 4 of these is because we have 3 Centiskorch. For 1 energy, we can do 30 damage. 130 HP is actually really nice as well. And then for 3 energy, no discarding, we can do 100 damage. So we have 3 copies of that. You usually get 1 less copy of the previous state. So the evolution will usually have 1 less copy. So a 4-3 line is what we would call that. You have 4 of one and then 3 of the next. So here we have a 3-2 Vulpix to Ninetales. You have Vulpix 70 HP with the 10 damage attack for 1 energy, 1 retreat. These are all important. I didn't mention the HP and the retreat, but keep an eye on both of those. I mean, I've only mentioned the attack so far, but something that I should have done, something that you should be always noting, is the HP and the retreat cost. Because the higher the HP, usually the higher the retreat cost. And it kind of depends on the Pokemon. So like, look at Vulpix. It's a thin little kind of dog. Cat, fox, really, I guess. And it can, seemingly, hopefully, probably run pretty quickly. So 1 retreat cost. You got this big, bulky Centiskorch. Probably doesn't move that fast. 3 retreat cost. So 3 is pretty high. You don't usually see 3. You usually see between like 1 and 2. You usually don't see 3, and you usually don't see 0, but you will. I've seen both. I mean, both are prevalent in the standard format, as well as, I don't know how many 4s I've seen, but I'm sure there's got to be at least a few 4s out there. So getting onto Ninetales, you have 2 energy. Well, let me start off with the top. You have 110 HP, 2 energy for 70 damage, and then 1 retreat cost still. 1 retreat cost on something with 1 and 10 HP, 70 damage, that is an evolutionary, is actually probably this Pokemon's strongest asset. And you have 1 copy of Turtonator with 130 HP, Tackle for 2 energy, 30 damage, and then for 4 energy, Fire Spin, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, 150 HP, another 3 retreat. This is going to be they only give you 1 copy, and that's pretty good because this is not the best card, which is a good way to lead into the strategy. So let's start talking about the strategy of the deck. What is your goal with this deck? Your goal is to build up your big attack Pokemon and then knock out your opponent's Pokemon by having them either leave them in the active after attacking you, or by bringing them up through using your Pokemon catchers. Say they're on the bench, once again, they're powering up, or they're hiding, or they're low HP, or this or that. You use your Pokemon catcher, bring them up, boom, hit him for your 210 HP attack, or for your Volcarana's 170 HP attack. So the reason why I really like the Volcarona is because you're able to do 170 is going to be enough to knock out most Pokemon. It'll actually be enough to knock out some Pokemon V. So it's actually a pretty powerful attack, especially in this format. And the main thing that I like about this is, to get into the real deep strategy of it, is say you start off with your Larvesta. Now this Flame Charge attack is actually really, really nice. So you can only start off one of 2 ways. You always flip a coin before the game starts, and whoever wins the coin toss gets to decide who goes first or second. So you will always either be going first or second. So if you are going, let's start with if you're going first. Actually, no, we're here. We're already here. So, and I know, backtrack a little bit, but let's say you start off going second. This is why I like the Volcarona, because starting second is usually not that great. But if you start second, that means that you can attack first. So your first attack you're going to want, if you start second, is going to be this Larvesta. This is going to be your goal. You're going to want to get this card in your active spot, right up here, boom. And you're going to want to attack with this very first turn. That way, because to attack with it, you would have had to put 1 energy on it. And then once you attack with it, you are able to search your deck and put 1 more energy on it. And the goal is to then evolve next turn into Volcarona. And if you do that, you can then attach for turn. I'm going to try to get the glare out of the way. Okay, there you go. And then if you can do that, you are able to hit for, if you can get all that going, like that, get that whole combo going. If you can, your first turn of the game going second, if you can attach 1 energy, that's not that much. And then you get to get the second energy. So pretty much you need Larvesta and 1 energy. That's pretty reasonable. but the Larvesta needs to either be in your hand while you draw the first 7 to get it into your active, or you would need like a switching card or some way to get it into the active spot. But if you can get that off and then somehow get this Volcarona in your hand and then another energy by virtue of either using, you know, Sonya for the 2 energy, or Hop, or Bug Catcher, or any of these cards, or Shauna, or whatever, to find this combination of cards, if you can do that, then you can be hitting for 170 on turn 2, which can be great. It can be a really nice way to set up and just, I don't know how else to word it, just kind of like show your opponent who's boss, be like, all right, I'm going to take the first prize card, pretty much almost certainly. Like, I don't think there's anything that can withstand, I would have to, we'll check in the later decks, but I don't think that Pikachu V or Eevee V can, I think Pikachu V would have like 190 HP, maybe 180, so it's probably not going to get one hit knocked out by it, but it's going to be hurting after that. So either the V are going to be hurting or knocked out. I think the EVV might only have 170. I kind of forget exactly the numbers, but we'll get into it in later episodes. Nevertheless, this is a super strong attack and a super strong combo if you can get this off. Basically, the 4th turn of the game, it would be, you know, your 2nd turn going second. Now, let's say you go first the other half of the time. I think the ideal card to get into the active would be Vulpix. Now, if you can get Vulpix into the active, you can't even attack first turn, and that's fine. But your goal is to get Vulpix in the active and then get that 1 energy attached. And you're pretty much trying to do this, a similar thing, but for less damage, yet more consistency, is then you can get Ninetales into the active next turn if you can find it. If you do that and a 2nd energy, now you're hitting for 70 damage consistently. You're not discarding any energy, and the most important part is you have the 1 energy retreat cost. So the first thing that I would say people are kind of a little bit reckless at when they first start playing the TCG is they just kind of like let their Pokemon get knocked out too much. You really want to let your opponent put as much damage out there as possible and then find ways to either heal it or retreat that Pokemon and not leave it available for them to get knocked out, or some way to almost make them waste their turns or cause them to take more turns than necessary to get knockouts. You want your opponent to take as many turns as possible to get a knockout. Let's just say that you and your opponent are kind of going back and forth hitting each other. You know, say you hit him for 70 a couple times and then they hit you for like, I don't know, like 30 or 40 or 50 or some hit that'll put you at basically where the next hit is going to knock you out. Instead of swinging again for 70, even if it will give you a prize card, it's almost always the better play to just use the 1 energy retreat, leave the 1 energy on this Pokemon, bring it back to the bench, and then leave it down there with the 1 energy. And then bring something else into the active spot and then either use that as like a tank to get in the way of things, or something that you've been charging up and you're ready to hit with, or whatever it may be. Or maybe now you want to use the Larvesta, and like now you finally found it and now you want to put this out turn like, you know, 4, 5, 6, whatever, it doesn't matter. Early game Larvesta will still be very valid. Later game, once you have things out in the field that are hitting for 80 that can knock out this Pokemon that got those 2 energy attached, it's going to lose value. So Larvesta is a really great early game Pokemon. But yeah, as the game progresses, or if it's obvious that your opponent can clearly hit for 80 the next turn, you're going to probably not want to be using the Larvesta at that point. But regardless, it's nice to be able to have this Ninetales out there hitting, and then retreat with that 1 energy. Now, to get into the rest of the Pokemon and how we're going to be really utilizing them, the Centiskorch off of the Sizzlipede is going to be kind of your, I don't know how to word it, your next best option, like your plan B. If you can't get either of those 2 things going, you're going to want to probably go with this. You do have a few things, 2 things going for you that are really good. You have 130 HP off the evolution, which is nice, and then you have a 1 energy attack in it. I know it only does 30, but to have those 2 things is at least something. This deck's biggest issue is that it needs time to build up. So when you're playing, you're going to either need to use cards like this to just kind of take a couple of hits, probably have to die with this card. Like your Pokemon's going to have to get knocked out. This is not one of those retreat cards because it has 3 energy to retreat. If you have 3 energy on this, you probably don't ever want to have 3 energy on this. If you have 3 energy on this, it's one of those like worst case desperation scenarios, like, oh man, I had to build this up and I had to start hitting with this because I just couldn't find anything else. My hand has like 20 energy and a couple of stage 1s and that's it. And sometimes that does happen. So Centiskorch and Sizzlipede are going to be there to you know, you got the 4-3 line, so it's really going to be, I don't want to say a backbone, but it's going to be your go-to backup when you can't get anything going. Victini is kind of like your go-to beginning game when you can't get anything going. Like, say you can't find any of that turn 1 or turn 2. You're just going to want to get Victini in the active and then use Quick Draw to draw a card. If you're drawing 2 cards every turn while your opponent's drawing 1, that's a good way to set up. That way you can, you know, maybe get your hand on some of these supporter cards. I know we haven't really gone over these supporter cards, but that's because they all kind of do the exact same thing. They get you more cards. So the item cards are different and of value, but the supporter cards really are all just the exact same thing. Now, Sonia is a little more specific in that she allows you to search for 2 basic Pokemon or 2 energy cards. Shauna is a little different in that she allows you to shuffle your hand back into your deck, but at the end of the day, all they're doing is allowing you to draw into your deck and get more cards. So good, great cards, but they're just like, there's no strategy to this. Like, you know, play it. Like, if you get the card, play it. There's no... This deck doesn't contain a card like Boss's Orders, which would be a guaranteed gust. You don't have to flip a coin. You automatically get to choose a Pokemon from your opponent's bench and just bring them up. But that's a supporter card. So if you do that, then you're not allowed to use any draw cards for that turn. So then you have a decision to make. But with all the cards being draw cards, I'm not really talking about the supporters, because literally, if you get a supporter card, just use it. You know, you can only use 1 per turn anyway, so just use it. The only real strategy that I guess I will say is, say you have like 2 or 3 of these in your hand. Say you have like Shauna, Bugcatcher, and Hop. Always, always, always save Shauna for last. Hop and Bugcatcher, like I mentioned before, are pretty much the same card. Doesn't really matter which order you use them, and they're going to draw you 3 guaranteed on average. So that's fine. But Shauna, you don't want to ever shuffle, and because I've done this before with Cynthia, and that's when you draw 6 cards. You never want to shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 5 cards, and have them be 5 bad cards. Now, say you have no other choice, then you had no other choice. But if you could have gone Bugcatcher and then Shauna to see if the Bugcatcher got you what you needed, and then you can Shauna, that's better than only taking the Shauna. So use all of your draw cards up. Shauna will be the last one you would want to use in your hand. That's kind of my only strategy with these draw cards. And honestly, the rest of the game is going to just kind of play itself. The way that you start these games is really the most important. You want to be getting built up and hitting for as quickly as possible in this format. You want to be taking that, you want to be getting knocked out as infrequently as possible, so you're going to be using your switch cards to go back and forth from the active position. You only have 2 of them though, so you're going to either be using this to switch in when you have your Pokemon fully powered up, or when you're basically just switching out of the active spot. So the only other real thing I wanted to mention, you do have energy retrieval, which is the reason why I mentioned Sonia should only really be used for getting basic Pokemon, is because we have the energy retrieval. So after you use a couple of those discard attacks, like the Cinderace V or the Volcarona, where you have to discard the 2 energy, you can use the energy retrieval to get those from the discard back into your hand. So you have 2 item cards to allow you to get energy into your hand. They're not going to accelerate it in any way, meaning you can still only attach the 1 per turn, but it's kind of a search card in a way, if you know that they're guaranteed in the discard. So, and you'll know that they're in the discard if you've been retreating. That's one way to get them in the discard. You have Pokemon get knocked out, or by using your big attacks like that. So that's why I mentioned earlier that Sonia will most likely just be used for finding the Pokemon. But once again, you know, say you're in a situation where you have a handful of Pokemon and no energy, and you got to use it for energy, you got to do what you got to do. I guess Great Ball, only other thing to really mention about that is try to save Great Ball for your evolution Pokemon if possible, because there's no way to search out evolution Pokemon, where with Sonia you can search out your basics. So that's my only tip for Great Ball. But once again, this deck is relatively limited. It's a level 1 deck. You got to do what you got to do. So play the cards how you think is best. That's the best part about these games and playing Pokemon and all that. The last thing that I just wanted to do was shuffle the decks up and show you some like kind of starter hands and what I would recommend, how I'd recommend playing them. You know, how I'd recommend playing, like what your general strategy would be from the perspective of different starting hands, and what you should, you know, be thinking about, what you should be looking for, this or that, going first or going second. So I'll shuffle the deck up. I will draw a few hands. I'll keep doing that. I'm not going to make you folks sit through my shuffling, but I just wanted you to know what I was about to do. All right, so with a hand like this is what we call a tough start. So what we would do is you'd have to put down Sizzlypede. You know, you'd put it face down, of course, but for the sake of, you know, right now in the video, I'm just gonna put it face up. you'd put it in the active, and then say you're going first, you know, or second, doesn't really matter. Going first, you're going to definitely want to put that energy on there. We're going to try and build up for the Cinderace for the following turn. This would be one of those situations where going first or second doesn't matter. I'm going to use the Great Ball for sure, because we need to get a second Pokemon in play. So let's just say in this exact instance we used Great Ball, we would get to search the top 7 cards of our deck and grab a Pokemon. So from here, we have a plethora of options. We have Larvesta, we have Ninetales, we have Larvesta again, we have Cinderace, and then we have Vulpix. Now, this is, I would say, it's a bit of a tough call. I actually do like taking the Cinderace. It's really easy to be tempted to do this and then get kind of stuck, but because we have the Shauna for next turn, or if we were going second, we could just do it immediately. I would go with the Cinderace because that would guarantee, well, we wouldn't do it immediately if it was our second turn. We would then wait for the following turn so that we could evolve the Sizzlypede, because you cannot evolve on your first turn. So regardless, if we took the Cinderace, we're taking it, showing it, leaving it in our hand, and then not playing it the next turn, or not playing it until the next turn because we can't. And then we, of course, would not play Shauna if we could, because we would not want to lose the Pokemon that we just took. Your only other option would really be, at this point, I guess Vulpix, you know, to try and get the Ninetales, because Larvesta could be good, but we're already in a situation where we may not get a Larvesta in play, so we might have to think about our next best option, and I think Vulpix is the next best option, but I think the best play altogether is to try and get that Cinderace in play, because then you can be hitting turn 2. You don't have to even put any more energy on this Pokemon if you don't want to. You can just keep hitting for 30, boom, 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 let it get knocked out, and that's that while you build something else up on the side, which I kind of like as the play. So just to give you a little bit of hindsight for like just one particular situation, then we would Shauna the next turn, or this or that. And depending on what your opponent does and what your opponent has up there will dictate further options, so we can't really go too much further than that. I'll do a couple more of these, then I'll call it a video. Alright, so with a hand like this, oh, interesting spot. So we would have to start with our, again, we only have one Pokemon. Now, if you have more than one Pokemon, just go off of the strategy that we've talked about before, and then usually you can either fill up your bench beforehand or do it during your first turn. It really doesn't make that big of a difference. But your strategy is going to be really similar to the last draw. You know, kind of either like use your Great Ball first turn. Hop is going to be your draw card. So just search for what you can. Say in this instance, we have our top 7 would be, you would want, I guess you just take the Cinderace and then hope that off the hop, you can try and find a Sizzlypede. So that's kind of how the hands go. Sometimes you really don't get too much to start off. If you get a lot, you get a lot. And if not, you know, you do the best with what you can get. But hopefully you folks learned a little bit, especially if you're new to the game. And I really appreciate you all stopping by. Since you folks watch this, I assume you all like Pokemon cards. We are giving away over a booster box worth of packs right now through free card giveaway 17, 18, and on Discord. It's sponsored by KittenCatAubrey and KittenCatAubreySales. They have a YouTube and a TCG player, really awesome content and excellent deals in their store. So fantastic people, go check them out for sure, please. We also have the rest of our Poke friends, Tim and Nathan over at Pokemon Father and Son. Excellent father and son duo. They do a lot of openings. They've been doing giveaways, random things, like very, very cool. Love everything that they do. It's nice to see the European element of what you're able to get over there and this and that. So they've got a really cool perspective, and they're just fantastic people as well. I think I mentioned them before, Aria and the family at AriaQuinnPlays. Definitely go check out their channel. You couldn't even tell it's new anymore because they're growing so much. They're pretty much at 50 subscribers. They'll be at 100 before you know it, and then they'll be at 1 million before you know that. So they're awesome. Go check out them. They do openings as well. Me and Aria played the other day through Discord on webcam, kind of like how you're seeing right now, like this kind of angle, and that was super fun. So we're going to do that again soon. That's why I got the Corviknight Lycanroc deck that I showed you folks earlier. Ozzy at Oscorp, my man, just hit 100 subscribers. Congrats. He's actually flying past that. Like, double congrats, my man. You're doing great. Keep it up. Keep it up. I'm very, very proud of all the work he's done. He's doing super good, getting a lot of traction, finally getting the recognition that he deserves. And then go see AJ at AJ Cards. He does Pokemon, Dragon Ball Super, Yu-Gi-Oh! Very, very cool person. got me into opening up some Dragon Ball Super cards and always piquing my interest in what they got going on. So go check out AJ Cards as well. And thank you folks so much. Really appreciate you sticking around for this long. It means the world to me. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that you saw today, if you have any suggestions for a next episode, things you'd like me to cover, things that I missed in this episode, or just things that either you think I got wrong or things that I could improve upon. I appreciate you all. I love you all, and we'll see you on the next one.